Welcome to Real Estate Done Rightish, your favorite podcast for realtors by realtors. I'm Jen.
And I'm Annalie. For a combined 30 years, we've been working in this industry, just trying to figure it out. By figuring it out,
we mean we've developed emotional calluses thicker than our transaction folders, but somehow our hearts still haven't gotten the memo.
Oh, that's so sad. Very on point for today's topic.
I know. I pulled that one because today we're talking about resilience. But before we jump into resilience, do us a favor. If you're enjoying the podcast, can you give us a 5-star review? Pass it along to people that you think might benefit from this. And is that it? Like, follow, subscribe, I think is what people say.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
You know what you say?
Smash it. Smash it. Smash the follow button.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So we're talking about resilience today, and this came up because we feel the need to have resilience right now in this industry and in this market. And we realized, we were just talking before we hit record, that our market is not every market, but that it is challenging nationally in terms of number of transactions sold, and that no matter what your market is like, there are days and seasons and months and times when you feel like it's not going to work. Mm-hmm. Or you're getting your butt kicked by some tough transactions or clients, or maybe you hear somebody in the office talking about how tough it is, and maybe it's not that tough, but you hear it and it makes you feel some kind of way. And so we're going to talk today about what resilience is.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you want to say about it, Annie? One thing I said before we started was that I think, so prior to this, I had walked into somebody's office and they were like, how you doing? What's new? And I said, I'm going to start circle prospecting. I'm going to probably start calling expires. I'm like, really, again, I've been holding many open houses. I've been door knocking, I'm doing the things and just not seeing results as quick as I want and need. And I'm like, I've got it about another 4 months and then I really will need to get a job. Like, if this doesn't start taking hold, I just can't not make money forever, you know?
Yes.
And this person was like, yeah, I feel like this market is like it was in 2009. It's, even though there were a lot of listings for sale in 2009, there were 18 listings for every buyer. So there weren't as many units closed. And I came in here and I told you that story. And then what happened?
It made me feel bad.
Yeah.
Well, I do think that, like, this is a good lesson of be careful about what you're putting in your body
and mind.
I
mean, both things.
Well, but I mean, like, I'm thinking of like intakes.
Yeah.
Because it can really tilt you by accident. Like, that tilted me a little bit because I was in the market in 2009, and 2008 and 2009 and 2010 and 2011 felt impossible to do anything unless you were an agent that like jumped on short sales or foreclosures and landed REO contracts. Everybody else was just like, it felt like we were all fighting for a few table scraps, and it was hard.
Yeah.
And I was really young and I didn't need to make that much money, but it was hard.
Yeah.
And it was like damaging.
Yeah.
I feel like
so you're like, I don't want to go back there.
Well, it's like a little bit of PTSD from that market. And so when I hear someone who, and this person was also in the market at that time, when I hear that, I'm just like, oh, ooh. And I've heard this, there's been like, I think somebody says this every year of like, oh, it feels like a crash, or it feels like this, or it feels like referencing that time. And I never like to hear it, but a lot of times I'm kind of like, no, everything's good. Mm-hmm. And today I didn't like it.
Yeah.
It made me sad.
Yeah. And so right after that, it was like, okay, I was putting the outline together for resilience. Like, okay, what are the talking points on this? What's been helpful to me? And you were looking up data.
Yeah.
Which is like a key point. You went right to numbers because we have feelings and we have anecdote and we have what people say their experience is. And I know, I was in the market briefly when it first started, but then having been in the industry long enough, you will always have people that are wildly successful in the quote unquote worst market. Mm-hmm. And I think a part of what makes them successful is resilience. Another part is creativity. Another part is like they're willing to, if you jumped on on short sales and bank-owned properties at the time, you had to learn a whole new skill set in theory.
Oh, for sure. No, yeah.
And you had to be very emotionally resilient to handle clients that were going through. I mean, I was one person that short sailed, and I was pregnant. It was the person on the other side of the transaction was brutal. It was really, really hard. And so for my realtor, they had to be really emotionally resilient. Anyways, a part of that emotional resilience is being able to, what was I saying about that? Handle emotional
and adapt.
Yeah, adapt and be creative and learn new things. Like there's a lot of facets to it. But all that being said, we can easily get caught up in the emotion of the moment. And I'll speak for myself and just the anxiety of what somebody else is sensing, feeling, seeing. And that's like, is that truth? Is that truth?
Right.
And is it my truth? I think are two different things.
Well, and I mean, I will say personally, like I'm going to have a record-breaking June myself. Mm-hmm. That's next month. We're recording this in May. So one would think that I would be like, no, everything's amazing right now. Mm-hmm. And that still tilted me and made me have feelings. Right. Mm-hmm. So it's just interesting how it almost doesn't matter what's actually going on in the world or what's actually going on in your business. I think because we're self-employed and because it's like, you have to get hired every day. Right. Yeah. And I think that it's really easy to take that stuff in and let it affect you.
For sure.
And so how do you let it affect you for like the least amount of time or not affect you at all?
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about the data, because I think in light of that today, like that was just interesting what you looked up. So you were looking up closed units per year.
Yes.
Okay. So tell us about what you saw.
Okay. So this is just for the Twin Cities in Minnesota. So this is a 16 county metro area. So it's large area. And I went back all the way to 2020 because I kind of wanted to see some trend lines. I couldn't go back further than that I was just in InfoSparks, which is in our MLS. I think it's in lots of MLSs around the nation. But I was like, well, let's see. I also know exactly what my business looked like over the last 5 years. So for my brain, I wanted to kind of correlate.
How does that correlate to what happened in the market?
Correlate to how many homes were actually selling. So how much opportunity was there and how did that reflect into my business is kind of why I was looking at it. Mostly, so I'm looking at a rolling 12 months. So that's 12 months total sales each April.
Yep.
So I'm looking
April
from
to
last year, April to this year, April, how many sales were there. So this year, that would be 45,214.
Okay.
Last April would be 45,346.
So very similar in the Twin Cities.
Very tiny bit more, almost identical though. 23, so from April 22 to 23 would be 50,105. So 7,000 or 5,000 more, sorry.
Yep.
And then 21 to 22 jumps all the way up to 65,044.
So in the Twin Cities,
20,000 more homes in 12 months sold,
which is significant.
Yeah.
So
if you got in the business in 21 and you're feeling a pinch right now,
it's real.
It's 20,000 homes real.
So I'd be curious, we're not going to do this right now, but I'd be curious to see what was 2008 and what was 2009. Like, I think you might be able to actually go back. What's the max? Yeah.
Well, you want like April 2000.
Yeah.
Well, April 2008 is not a good measure really because that's the last 12 months. So it's 07 into 08.
Yeah.
Not the best measure. If we look at April 09, it was 41,010. So fewer homes than now. But
only by 4,000 in the Twin Cities.
Yeah.
So in that regard, again, this is why, okay, so I know we're talking about resilience today, but I think this data piece is important because data is always important in my mind. It does tell a story. It helps us understand what we're in. And the reality is that we are in a more similar market to 2009 in terms of units available to close. So you might have a ton of buyers, or in your market, it might look different. I'd encourage you to go and pull your data and see, what am I really working with right now? Are there a lot of listings for sale, but they're not closing because in your market, whatever, we talked about Florida last week, that maybe they have a different market specifically locally. So Yeah.
Well, and if I think maybe we'll post, I think looking back a really long distance, this is interesting because we haven't had this few homes close since 2011 and 12-ish. 2011 into 12, it was significantly lower than where we are now. But previous to that, it was 9, 10.
Yeah.
And then we took another hit, 11, 12. 11, 12 was actually when the fewest properties closed. And since 2012 into 2013, we've been at, 5 to 10,000 homes more closing than we are now.
Yeah.
And so, it does, this actually kind of comforts me a little bit in that it makes sense why it feels this way.
Yeah.
And why people are making comments. There's like a little bit of validation. And, we had up in the 61,000 in 2006. I was in the market then. We're just coming off a time where the very peak here was 68,000. So not that different. And again, seeing these go up and down, I'm like, oh, there will be ups and there will be downs. Right. So
yeah. And there's again, not to harp on it. Yeah. There's going to be ups and downs. And this is a relatively big down compared to where we were in Minneapolis, just not that many years ago, like 3 years ago, 4 years ago. And so,
yes. And we just came out of an incredibly odd time.
Yeah.
Like COVID was weird.
Yeah.
Everybody thought like, are we ever going to sell a house again? And instead it was
I wish
I
had this stat on hand, but I think that everybody can sell a house. When I was on the recruiting side of things, we were constantly looking at new agents entering the industry and new agents leaving the industry. And so even at the time when there was a lot of more units available, there was a lot more agents in the industry. So what was that ratio?
For sure.
That's when we're talking about data. It's like there may not have actually been more units available to close per realtor in the industry.
Yeah.
And that's important to know. So again, to me, one of the biggest parts of resilience is having a resilient mindset. And sometimes that means doing what we just did and getting a grip and going, okay, what landscape are we really in? And knowing what information to look for. Like if we really wanted to get a grip, we could pull that number of agents in the industry. And we know that stat that's all over the internet right now. 74% of agents didn't sell a home last year. How many of them are going to get out of the industry? For the agents that stay in now, that keep their license active, that let people know they're still in the industry, it might be tight. You might want to get a job. Like that's, if 5 months from now I'm in this situation, I'll be getting a job or I'll be helping out realtors and I'll still be sending out my weekly newsletters. I'll still be prospecting and I'll be building my business. When this turns and there's more units available, then you're on the front edge of riding the wave up. And so like,
I have another thing I want to talk about statistically though.
Do it.
That's volume.
You were just looking at volume?
Yeah.
Wait. Oh, I thought you were looking at units closed.
No. Right now I'm talking about volume.
Oh, okay. Go ahead. Sorry.
Because we're commission based and most of us are percentage commission based. So units matter, but if I'm looking back just really quickly at the last 5 years, and this is back to the monthly snapshot, but it went from 1.6, this is billion, I believe, 1.6 billion in 2020, 2 in 21, 2 in 22, 1.4 in 23, 1.7 last year, and we're back up to 1.8.
Okay, thank you. The volume is going up.
It's going back up. A lot of that is sales price, right? So there is much more opportunity to make the same amount of money doing less transactions.
I'm going to be a doomsdayer. Not really doomsdayer, but the other stat to throw in there is inflation. And so it's like, how much is our cost of living going up compared to maybe not probably the same ratio as in terms of the opportunity to take volume and take revenue coming in. Do you know what I'm saying? Just for an individual, if you're looking at the overall, that's just a side note. But I think that's really important to look at. Like, yeah, you're taking a piece of the pie still. And what piece? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and you can do fewer transactions and make the same amount.
Yeah. Yes.
That's kind of the point that I was making.
That's great. Okay. So we get a grip.
First, I think I would call
we're walking people through real time.
Well,
like, what are we doing
yeah.
right now to be resilient in a moment where we're not feeling as mentally resilient?
Yeah. If you're in a moment of ugh,
yeah,
my first thing is like ground myself with some data.
Yep.
So again, things to look at. We just looked at closed sales. We looked at closed volume. We looked at rolling sales over the last. There are a lot of things that you can look at to kind of see where are you. I would love to see a like average. How many closings per agent are out there? I don't think that's a great number either, actually, because how many people are licensed that don't try?
Exactly. So or that are assistants or that are whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think step one for me is always, as you saw, I was like, I want to look at some numbers. So again, just kind of like see if the feelings are valid, and a lot of times right away, like I will look and I will start to see opportunity in numbers, and it will like open the little bit of doomsday clouds if and when they come in.
Yeah, that's great.
By the way, I also think we personally are in a great market right now. I'm like, if you have a listing, it will sell if it's priced correctly. We have a huge buyer pool. I think we are actually sitting in a really opportunistic, great market personally.
Yeah.
And feeling that way and having one comment make me feel uggy.
Yeah.
Is interesting, right?
It is interesting. Yeah. It's easy to be persuaded by what people are saying and what people are feeling and whatever.
Yeah.
The other thing, just to like maybe pinpoint, if you got into the industry in 2020, 2021, you've been in 4 or 5 years, even though that was tough because you were hustling with buyers during that time, or maybe you got in pre that time, it's different than it is now. And I've been getting all these ads in my feed right now for how to prospect with social media and how to prospect like it and be an attractor and be blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, dude, I don't have time to be an attractor right now. Like I've been for the last year working on being magnetic. Actually, I've been working on that for many years. And I'm like, I know I've got great energy. I know I can attract opportunity. I know that. But also now's not the time for me to sit and attract. And I'm just like, okay with that being what it is. And I think, and I just said this to you, I hope I'm going to say it on the podcast, but like when you had the moment of like, I'm going to be okay, right? You know? And I'm like, are you kidding? There's a lot of opportunity that you have that you just haven't needed to pull those levers because you've had business coming to you, and you probably still will, by the way. But I think there are a lot of things a lot of agents haven't needed to do in this market that you might need to sharpen your skills because you might be going up against competition in a listing appointment. You might need to circle prospect or fly your neighborhoods, or if you need and or want to maintain the same level of sales, I think there is an element of like, buckle up, buttercup. Yeah. It's like, are you willing and able to do those things? You can succeed in any market. And that's what I'm having to like preach to myself right now. I know that I can succeed in any market, but it's going to take a certain level of fortitude. That's not the right word. Pushing forward is the word I'm looking for. Like not just resilience. It's also like, whatever. Pushing forward. Forging ahead. Yeah. Is that the F word you're looking for? Yep. There's so many F words we can
Not
use.
Foraging. No. Forging. Maybe that
might too. I might need to forage. My sister would be fine with me sharing. She's just been on this real kick lately of like learning about all of the trees and plants that are edible that we have no idea that we call weeds that are actually edible. She's like, you have a whole garden. I'm just like, every time we take a walk, she's like, you could eat all of this right here. Did you know you could eat this?
See, if you don't sell enough houses, you can just forage. And make a salad.
It's either forging ahead or foraging. Yeah. Okay.
These are the options.
Okay.
We've grounded ourselves.
I think I don't have a particular order of the notes that I took. I just was thinking through what has helped me in the past in the moments that I've needed resilience and needed to move ahead. And I think I already said this in passing, but keeping the long-term in mind. So for me right now in real estate, I have gone through changes getting into leadership and giving up my sales business. And I've looked back and I don't regret that. And I wouldn't change that. But I'm like, oh, because I did that, I'm having to rev the engine again now, like as if I'm starting from ground zero. And I don't want to be here again. I don't want to
You mean
go
in the
take a
future?
job
Yeah.
and kind of let my license go and kind of forget to let people know I'm in real estate. And then a year or two from now, be like, the market's good, I'm getting back in, and then have to be doing this again. So this is for all the listeners out there right now who are in that same place. Like maybe you're on the bubble and you know you have the skill and ability. I'm going to keep the long term in mind. Why am I doing this? And I think for anybody, you've probably heard like, think about your big why. My big why is not building an orphanage, although that's great. Like my why is my long term stability, health, wealth, finance. And I don't even mean to be a multimillionaire. I just mean my own personal sense of security and freedom. And I think that I have, although it feels scary, how many of us know people that work in corporate America or have worked a job and they just lose it overnight?
Yeah.
It feels more certain, but what feels certain to me is that I get to choose my effort right now. I get to choose my mindset. I get to choose the ways that I can make money. And that's what helps me stay resilient is like, oh yeah, I am in control. In those other scenarios, I wasn't in control. I didn't have a say.
Yeah.
Yeah. So keeping that long term in mind and reminding yourself that you get to be the driver. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my thing. That's my one thing on that. What's your thing?
Okay, so keeping the long term in mind is like
Yeah.
a way to work on
Yeah.
resiliency.
And how do you do
Not
that?
feeling in the moment,
Yeah.
feeling more long term, making bigger long term plans. Also, this is just a business where I will say it's both like a dinghy and a
Dongy?
No, I mean like a boat. A dinghy. It's both like a very small dinghy and like a
Yacht.
right? And what I mean by that is in a dinghy, you move the steering wheel and you'll spin in a circle in like 2 seconds. In a yacht, you have to plan miles ahead to make any sort of turn. And so actions that we do today can both show up immediately and I will say more habits, things like that will show up long term. And so I think jumping between what am I doing today and how is this going to show up 3 months from now, 6 months from now, a year from now, as long as I just stick with it.
Yep.
Is important.
The other thing I was going to say on the like future vision for me, and everybody's probably different. I'm very visual. So I know people have thoughts and feelings about vision boards sometimes like, oh, that's cheesy or does it really work? To me, it's not necessarily about what it does to your subconscious brain, although I do think it does something there, but it's about keeping that image, the future image, the long-term in mind in front of me visually. So to have that there and go, okay, this is why I'm doing this. If it's my image of whatever freedom looks like or financial security, like to keep that in front of me all the time and remind me like, this is why I'm doing, this is why I'm not giving up on this opportunity. The other thing, I haven't done this now recently, but I was like, oh yeah, I used to have whiteboards up in my office that I would change out a quote like once a week that was really resonating with me, that helped remind me to like, especially if you are going to be cold calling or prospecting, TSA compliant friendly, but if you're going to be doing things that don't feel very comfortable or they're new, for me, it's helpful to just be like, it might be a quote that's like, this is temporary, or this isn't, just something that resonates with me. So if I find it, I put it up and I read it before I start. So there were like little practical things like that that's helpful. Okay. Anything else on that?
No.
Okay. One of the other things I read, actually, this was when I got into management and recruiting, because it felt similar in some ways. Like the goals that we had were so astronomical. And I was like, I'm new at this. And how am I going to do this? I read at that time the book 10X, the 10X rule. And I think I mentioned it in one of our episodes, but that was coming to mind this morning. So one of the quotes from that book is, I got to take a deep breath. I'm talking so fast. Assume that every project you attempt will take more time, money, energy, effort, and people than you can imagine. Multiply every expectation you have by 10 and you'll probably be safe. And then this, like a sub thought on that was a quote that a commentator was saying on it was, to achieve extraordinary results, you must dramatically increase both your goals and your level of action. This mindset is especially relevant for people like us that are self-employed and need resilience. And I think that's kind of that aim high mentality. If I go into a day knowing or thinking it's going to take me 5 hours to set a listing appointment and it takes me 1.5, then I'm like, great. So if I'm planning for 10 times the activity and mentally preparing for that, then when anything less happens, I'm like, oh, cool. But you really have these extra gears and extra ability if you're mentally preparing for it, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. The other thing I'm going to say along activities, so you increase the activities, but then also sharpening skills.
Yeah.
And that, we don't have to do a whole skill-based episode, but again, I think there are a lot of us that have just kind of taken for granted that we can just like, my aunt's going to sell her house and I don't need to be sharp on my presentation skills or on my objection handling skills or on my, will you reduce your commission? How do I handle that conversation? Like, if you haven't done those things, you might want to do those things.
Yeah. I think, I mean, we've talked about this a little bit in other episodes, but things like I'm starting to use the pre-listing packet again. I'm getting ready to do some revamping on some of my marketing and my website and things like that. I think, I mean, it's good to audit all of that annually and see, where do I want to spend money? Where don't I want to spend money? What's working, what's not working, and push towards the things that need pushing. Right.
Yeah.
And so now is a really good time to do that and just kind of do a big audit on where do I feel like I could be falling short and where can I push harder and what can I tweak?
Yeah. Again, I think all of this too isn't like, maybe I'm under or overestimating this, but I think there are probably a lot of agents in the industry that haven't been doing a lot of those things. And when you look at any other business, it's kind of business basics. It's like, but because of whatever the market has yielded or whatever the situation has been, we can kind of get away with doing less. But if somebody were to start like a brand new, I don't know, whatever restaurant or some other kind of business, it would be pretty basic to be like, okay, I need to be looking for how I'm going to market for new business. I need to have really polished materials. I need to, So some of this isn't like, it's not like asking you to go cold call for 8 hours a day. It's actually just like sharpening up things that you haven't done yet. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, different things are working in every different market. So again, making sure that you're holding your activities accountable. You're making sure, if open houses have always gotten you 25 transactions a year and you are at April and you haven't set one appointment from an open house this year, like you're not getting that 25.
Yeah.
Right. So we talk about this when we're goal setting for the year. We look at where your business came from last year. And I will tell people all the time, I'm like, if you got 10 listings from your referral network last year, don't say that all of a sudden is going to give you 30.
Right.
Because
unless your referral network has tripled in size.
Right. Right. So make sure that you're not like planning for things that aren't going to work and then really hold them accountable. So if it's door knocking or if it's open houses or whatever it is, you better be watching. If I'm expecting X amount because I got that last year doing this much activity, is that activity still working in this market? And right now, I know for my business, I don't think for everyone's business, but things that worked aren't working. Things that worked in 2018 are working again. So it's going and finding the things that are working. And so,
Yep. Okay.
So again, holding things accountable.
That's good.
And then resharpening those skills. Again, if you're going back to something that you haven't done since 2018, I would be scripting. I would be practicing. I would be revamping marketing materials in that, whatever that prospecting category is, for sure.
As we're talking about activities and skill-based stuff, I'm like, this is not necessarily directly linked to building resilience, except to me it is, because I gain a sense of confidence and control when I have a grip on those other two things. And so if the question is, how can I be resilient in a market that feels challenging? It's having that internal, what we were just talking about, this internal locus of control. Part of that is your own emotion, but part of that is understanding what we can control in the business itself. And so to me, it's activities and skills are, as if I was going to really boil it down. And then that helps me be more resilient rather than me showing up like, again, that idea of like, just put stuff. by the way, obviously we're doing the podcast. Like, I'm not opposed to putting things out on social to have a greater presence and awareness, obviously, because we're doing it. But also, it does not help me be resilient because I don't feel like I have any control over what that causes to come in. Right. That makes me feel anxious if I'm relying on social media or something. So, okay.
Well, that's the difference between being marketing based or prospecting based.
Yeah.
Right. So
absolutely.
Activities you can control.
Yeah.
Are better.
And I do think that's important in a market that might be tightening, that it's like, yeah, if you want to be resilient in your business, not just resilient as a human, your business needs to have more than one leg that it's standing on. Yeah. Okay. Okay. A few like mindset things. One is this idea of seeing a problem as a puzzle or a challenge instead of seeing it as a problem. So when we have a hurdle or we have something that comes up, like for me, and I'm going to just like caveat the caveats on this. But for me, it's like, okay, I'm door knocking, I'm holding opens. It's been a few months now of, for my own level of effort, I'm going to say average effort. I think in the last month, I've held 3, 6, 7, 8 open houses. So that's 2 a weekend on average. I'm door knocking on average, probably 100, 150 doors a week, calling my database, sending out an email newsletter every week. So I'm like doing the things, doing the podcast, I'm on social media, and I'm not getting the results. Mm-hmm. And I know that I have the skill and ability to get the results. So then I'm like, if I was coaching somebody, normally I would say, do your activities for 90 days before you judge them at all. Mm. But I also am like, this doesn't feel the same as when I did it before. And it's a good amount of effort without yielding results. And I know my skills are decent. Like I'm not a nunchuck at the door with people.
A nunchuck.
A nincompoop. So then I'm like, okay, is this a problem? What is this? Is this a puzzle? What do I need to look at? I'm going to, again, caveat it. If you've put in a small amount of effort on any one thing, be cautious to like bail from it. I'm still going to continue those things. I'm just adding to it now because I'm like, so now I'm adding expireds and circle prospecting to it. So it's this idea of like, okay, I have a challenge. What is the feedback that I'm getting from this? What is the data telling me? And maybe you're getting the appointments, but you're not getting the client, as an example. So anyways, whatever the problem is, whatever the challenge is, being able to see it not as failure, but have that mindset to go, okay, this is feedback. This is more data. This is more information. That's all it is. This isn't me like gonna totally jump ship. I'm just getting more information. And now what am I gonna do with it? And when do I need to pivot? When do I need to turn the dinghy?
Or the
Which
yacht.
is basically what I'm doing. I'm like, the yacht's still going in the same direction. Yeah. I'm still going to do these other things, but I've got to make a quick pivot on some things, or 5 months, you've got to move fast.
I'm just going to go back to what I said.
Yeah.
See how brilliant I am? Yeah. You're holding your activities accountable.
Yeah.
You're saying, okay, these are giving me results, but they're not giving me the result that's fully meeting my needs. And so I need to add to them right now or do them more. I mean, these are your options, right? You add additional or you do the same things more.
Yeah.
So,
which I was like, I could try to door knock 4 hours, 5 hours a day, except I have 2 torn ACLs and I'm just like, my knees are going to be screwed at the end of that walking through.
You were like, my knees hurt. That's actually what you said. It made me laugh. Really hard.
I'm like, am I that old? I guess I am. Anyways, having that mindset to see it as a puzzle, as like okay, here's a new thing. How do we solve this? And that's, we're talking about lead gen right now, but there's also just the transaction side of this where some people are like, they have clients, but they're getting their tails kicked because they're having a hard time with clients or they're having a hard time with agents on the other side of the transaction. So there is a resiliency in those settings too, where you have to look at it and go, okay, it's a puzzle. It's a problem to solve. Like that's very different from like, F me, my life is the worst thing ever, That'll take you down quick,
Yeah.
Don't think like that, people. You want to add anything else to mindset? She's real quiet on this one, guys. Okay. Last thing that I have on my list is self-care. Talked a little bit about this last week, but why don't you tell me about self-care, Annalie?
What would you like to know? It's so weird. It's the weirdest setup I've ever heard in my life. Tell me about self-care. Like the definition? What do you want from me?
I was trying to be weird on purpose. Okay. I thought we needed a little laughter in here, you know?
This is awkward.
We talked last week about what we do in those moments to like just take care of ourselves. How do we hit the reset button when we might need a reset button? And so walking is a thing. You've talked about that.
Yeah, I think, just kind of letting your brain reset, giving yourself a minute to breathe, not like before you tackle anything. If you're feeling in the ugh of a transaction, a person, a phone call, a problem in your transaction, not having enough clients, like taking a minute to just kind of get your mind right. And that might be breathing, that might be yoga, that might be meditation, that might be going for a walk. That's going for a walk is like my thing. It is how I get my brain to just stop. I usually listen to a podcast that has nothing to do with business or mindset.
Yeah.
It's kind of just to like take my mind off everything for a little bit. That's usually like my go-to, and then come back. Maybe I don't think about anything for 15 minutes. And then for 15 minutes, I think about, okay, what do I have to come back and tackle? And I start to just make a plan in my brain about, okay, when you get back to your desk, you're going to do X, then Y, then Z to like tackle whatever the problem is. So I also, for me, writing things down, like making a visual plan, super important for me to be ready to kind of move forward through anything. So maybe that is like, obviously data, right? Maybe it's looking back and saying, okay, where was I last year at this time? And how was I feeling last year at this time? And kind of doing a mental check-in just on my own business, on myself. And then making a plan of, okay, what did I do last January, February, March? But what did I do last Q2? And do I need to do more? Do I need to pivot? So like looking at my own things, but for me, like writing out a plan, starting to write down some concrete, like I think, for me, self-care would be like the moment of pause. And then I need things again that are going to be a little more concrete. So it's like the moment of pause is up in the air and like feels more uncertain. And then coming back and grounding through data, action, activity, plans.
It's good. Okay. This is a perfect segue. I want to come back to the moment of pause because I think that's huge when we are spiraling because we just heard somebody say it's a bad market, or when we're having a moment of whatever. I think it's am I recording? Oh my gosh. I think I was sending a voicemail to somebody that whole time I was recording something. You guys, I don't know who I just sent a voicemail to. Let's see. Oh,
they called you. They were leaving you a voicemail.
Oh, got it. Okay, good news. I just thought that was so weird. Okay. Anyway, sorry about that interruption. Now back to your regularly scheduled programming. There is a quote by Viktor Frankl, who, if you guys don't know who he is, he's an Austrian neurologist, psychologist, philosopher, and a Holocaust survivor. So some of this came from his experience of surviving Holocaust, which really seems extreme, but it definitely puts things in perspective if we're struggling.
The most resilient.
The most resilient. So 2 quotes that I think both are worth reading. The first on the pause point. Between stimulus and response, there is space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. I'm going to read that again. It's so good to me. Between stimulus and response, there is space. In that space is our power to choose our response. That's our power. In that space, taking the beat, taking the breath, taking the walk, that's where our power is to choose our response. And in our response lies our growth and our freedom. And like, oh, yeah, that's really landing with me right now. Yeah.
Yeah. So, can I just bring that back to
yes, please.
Us talking about, really what spurred this was literally just hearing somebody say, this feels like 2009.
Yeah.
So in that moment, and kind of what we're doing right now is like, we took a minute, I went to data, and then we're making a plan, right? So we're both, now it's like, so
we take a beat, take a pause.
That pause. And then the power is in that pause and moving out of that pause. And you get to choose how you're going to react to it, right? You could go home and I could eat like potato chips and just be like, well, I guess I'm going to look for a job. I don't think I'm employable, by the way. I think I just have to do this forever because I've been doing it for so long. That
You're like, no one wants to hire me.
Literally,
you mean that you don't want it? Yeah.
Oh, A, I feel unhireable, but B, I'm like, wait, I have to show up somewhere every day for somebody else? That feels absurd. Like, it doesn't feel like it could possibly be real. So it would not be looking for another job for me. It would be like, it has to be, how do I figure this out? It has to
be different. Yep.
Because that's all there is. But it's the power, you have the power to choose, right? And you have the power to say, okay, what am I willing to do? I think that that's a huge thing in our business is like, I was telling you today, right? Like in 2013, when the business was, I think it was 2012, when there were like no transactions happening, so many fewer than right now. I was still selling, but there was no way the amount of transactions I was doing would ever sustain. Like, I owned a home, I had bills. I just was like a assistant for hire, and I worked and a lot of agents couldn't afford a full-time assistant. So I just brought on a whole like stable of agents that it was like a 10-hour a week minimum, I think, that I gave them. And I brought on like 6 of them because some would only use the 10 hours and I was just on call to be their assistant for whatever they needed.
It's a great idea.
And because I brought on, it might have been like an 8-hour minimum, but I brought on more people than 40 hours a week. And I figured out the math and what I had to charge. And I was like, okay, if I bring in this many people and I'm willing to be on call and work my buns off for this many hours a week and still try to sell homes. And that was part of it, was that my business was mine and it was completely on the side. I can get through this. And so I just got creative and I just figured out a way, because they're literally not at that point in my business, there weren't enough transactions for me to sustain anything. So I got creative and I was willing to do that. There were a lot of other people that just got out of the business completely and they went and found other jobs. Right. And I was like, no, I want to figure this out. And I figured it out. So what are you willing to do?
What are you willing to do? And can you think more creatively? Like, we were just sitting here. I'm like, I'm in problem solving mode. Like, I'm willing to do things, but sometimes we've got to really, whether it's doing things like this, talking with people, asking people, what did you do? How did you get creative in a time when you needed to be more creative in your business, and having help you generate some ideas and then making a choice. And I think there's a reality for some people. It's like, no, I'm not willing. Are you really unwilling to do those things? Well, then what's the alternative? You know? Yeah. Okay. One more Viktor Frankl quote, which is right along these lines. The one thing you can't take away from me is the way I choose to respond to what you do to me, or in this case, what's happening around me. The last of one's freedoms is to choose one's attitude in any given circumstance. Which, again, if anybody can say it, it's Viktor Frankl, having survived the Holocaust, to be able to say, like, the last of my freedom is to choose my attitude in any given circumstance. So, and I think this is on topic, off topic, but I think our attitude / our energy is actually really critical, especially if we're in a people forward facing business, and if you're lead generating and prospecting, and if you're in an open house and you feel like you've got lead feet and you're just like, like, who's going to want to work with somebody that feels that way? And I'm not a fan of fake it till you make it, but I do, when I was, again, I keep saying, but when I was recruiting, there were days that were really hard. Like, you agents listening, you hate being recruited. I know it. Like, I cold called you, like, nobody wants those calls. Probably worse than like prospecting for clients, honestly. And so while I did not wear a suit and tie, I had read a quote from somebody that was like, every day before I get into the office, I get on the elevator, or get out before I'm about to get off the elevator to walk into the office. I kind of straighten my tie and I say, all right, it's showtime. And there was an element of that for me that it was like, all right, switch the gear. Like, now this is what it is. And so I do think there are times, like, if you're going into an open house or a listing appointment, you're feeling defeated, you've got to kind of, okay, it's showtime. Go.
Yeah. It's kind of like emotional intelligence or emotional control, right?
Yeah.
And we call it commission breath.
Yeah.
Or desperate. You can feel when people are desperate, or you can feel when people are like trying to hold a deal together that should not be being held together. And so
when they're depressed and anxious and, you know, just like not pleasant
focused,
to be around.
Yeah. And so, yeah, like in the pause, also kind of figuring out what do I need to do to make sure I'm showing up as a dynamic, excited, positive, ready to move forward.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be fake. I think there are ways that we can really, you know, there's books on gratitude and like practices around actually like elevating your energy levels. And when I need to do that, my go-to song, I might have mentioned this. Do you know what my go-to song is? Do you want to take a guess at what it is?
No.
It's Whitney Houston's "I Want to Dance with Somebody."
That's a
I
good
don't know why, but that song just is like, yeah, like
that's a run to the dance floor song.
It is. So if I'm feeling like I got to shift my energy now, and it's silly, but also there's a ton of science behind this, I will also make myself move my body, and I really don't want to, like a stubborn toddler. I'm just like, I don't want to dance to this song right now. It is literally the last thing I want to do. But if you're in a funk right now, I just dare you to turn on that song or one of your go-to songs. Force yourself to dance through it and see how you feel after that.
Yeah.
Because it will shift your energy.
It moves things through you.
Yeah, like Tony Robbins talked about that when I saw him at a last thing too. Like shifting your physiology will shift your state of mind. Like we often think we have to fix our mind. We should have led with this, but we often think we have to fix our mind so that we can change our mood, but it's actually just shifting your body first. So if you're sitting down, stand up. If you're standing up, take a walk. If you're like, or literally dance, like shut your door and just like, nobody's going to see you. No one has to know, but that will shift your mood quicker than anything else, actually. So yeah, if you see me dancing in here, you know, she's having a rough day or a great day. It could be both. Yeah. You don't know.
Well, and on that, like choosing, I have one more little like anecdote about the best open house I ever had.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Was actually, I didn't want to do it, but it was not my open house. The agent that was supposed to be doing it posted in our little office group chat thing, like 3 hours before it was going to start, she had like stomach flu or food poisoning or something. And she's like, I physically can't get there. And then she said, now the zinger is it's already also sold. Oh. But the seller still wants the open house.
Wow.
They signed a contract this morning. It's under contract, but it's been marketed. They want to do the open house for backup offers. So I was like, oh, cool. So I'm going to do this.
So nice of you, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, I was like, you know what? I'm not doing anything today. I'm going to like put an awesome outfit on. I'm going to feel really good about myself.
What's your awesome outfit?
I don't know what it was at the time. This is like 5 years ago.
So like overalls or something?
What's that?
I was just trying to think of the weirdest thing I could think of.
This is 2018.
Yeah.
Because I was really working on building my business. Yep. And I just was like, I'm going to cover this for this person because they need it. And no one else was. I think I saw it. I literally saw it like an hour before it was supposed to start. Yeah. I was like, I'm going to throw a great outfit on. I'm going to leave ASAP and get like a great coffee on the way there. Yeah. And I'm going to bring some note cards, and I'm going to send like notes of gratitude to past clients while I'm sitting there. And I'm not going to bring, I don't have a flyer. I don't have anything. All I brought was my business cards. And I literally met people at the door and said, I have good news and bad news. The bad news is the seller signed a contract this morning. The good news is they still want you to see the house in case you're interested for a backup offer. Here's my card. And then I was like, my goal today is just to have awesome conversations with everybody who comes in the door. Yeah. I didn't have people sign in. Yep. I was just like, I went in with this attitude of just like, I'm going to go make the most of this. But this is just to like help this person out. And then I'm just going to like come in with the best energy I possibly can. I met 2 clients that day, didn't get their information. They called me, and one of them didn't call me for like 3 months. The ones that didn't call me for 3 months said they had an agent. We had an awesome conversation just about the market. They lived in my neighborhood. Like both of them owned homes. They had to sell 2 homes they wanted to buy together. They ended up selling both their homes with me. buying a home together, buying a cabin, selling a cabin, buying a different cabin. And they probably referred me 10 people.
I mean, that's
over
like 20
2 years.
transactions right there.
Literally. Yeah. And it was for an open that was like not supposed to happen. Yeah. So I just think like sometimes if you can go in now, of course, that's not going to happen every single time. It was also luck, right? And it was also just random timing. But if I would have shown up with just like, oh, I'm covering this, I don't care. I just threw my pen.
You sure did.
But, you know, would I have gotten that result? Probably not. If I would have just kind of been I know I wouldn't have, because they literally already had an agent and they were like, we're good. And when they called me 3 months later, they were like, we don't know if you remember us, but we just had such a nice conversation and we decided we don't really like the agent that we used in the past. They weren't working with the person. They weren't under contract when I was talking to them. So anyway, I think just like, again, if you can, and I do not like doing opens. This is the other thing. It's just in general, it's not my favorite thing to do in the world. And I just like made the choice, got my mind right. And then things
had good energy. I think that's so. Another quote came to mind when you were speaking that I looked up.
I told you the longest story about an open house ever.
That was great. So Roman philosopher Seneca, whom a lot of people have probably heard. What's the name of the Socratic?
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking
Socrates, about? The Socratic Oath? No.
Oh, frick. It's like not really worth me looking up right now. Ryan somebody is a name that we saw that he's spoken in front of crowds and there's a big, oh, frickin' A, you guys. Now I got to look this up. Ryan.
Why don't you tell us your quote?
Okay. I know, but now I want to just, give people the context. It doesn't really matter. Okay. Hold on.
It's okay. You can just
okay.
The quote.
So Roman philosopher Seneca, luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. And so whenever people say, well, I got lucky, I really think this is the truth. You didn't just get lucky. You were prepared and it met opportunity. Your preparation met the opportunity. And so nobody that's lucky is just lucky. You had been shifting your energy. You had the skill. You were willing to put yourself out there in a time when you didn't need to. You want to be helpful. Like there's, whether that's karmic or not, I don't know. But I think there's this idea of like, if you want to be ready when opportunity comes along, back to all of the things we were talking about, where's your mindset? Where's your skill level? Where's your activity level? And that's, again, what I'm having to preach to myself right now is like, okay, you're doing these open houses and it doesn't feel like it's panning out, but who knows what that's sharpening in me, whether it is, or maybe what it's growing in me. Maybe it's just growing a level of resilience so that X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
But when you look at somebody else and think, well, they just got lucky, they didn't just get lucky. And when an agent is like, I don't know, I didn't really try. My business just grew. I'm like, no, that's never true. You were doing something. You're just not doing it the way that the classic way that I'm doing it right now. You're doing something else that is allowing you to have that level of success.
By the way, that's like the most annoying thing to me.
What is?
Especially if you go to a training and they're like, or like, how many times have you gone on to a panel and the agent that's on the panel that sold like, 1 billion homes last year.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, I don't really do anything. I just got lucky. Or they just like, I didn't really do anything. I just, it just happened.
You're like,
I think it's the most annoying thing. I'm like, don't do that. It's like, now you're also just like gatekeeping what worked for you. Don't do that. They think they're being self-deprecating, but I think they're just being annoying. I really don't like it. So if you're an agent that does that,
I know. So one of them is going to listen today and be like, oh, she's talking about me. Ryan Holiday. I had to look him up while she was talking. You don't know who Ryan Holiday is? He's written some books. Yeah. So I wasn't wrong. The wisdom of Epictetus and Socratic learning. So Socrates. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Yeah, I know. But I was really getting stuck on Ryan Holiday. He's like a big author and believer in this right now. Just it's a mindset. It's a way of thinking effectively. All right.
Well, how do you feel now? Do you feel better? Do you feel worse?
I mean, to be honest, and this is part of the way it goes. Today I'm feeling mentally strong. Like I'm feeling emotionally strong, but I still was like, oh shit. It's because I think something shifted in me, honestly, last night. I don't know why, but it hadn't like dawned on me to start circle prospecting prior to getting a listing. I've got a buyer under contract. I've got some potential leads, but I I've been door knocking for listings because that's how I did it before. It's like, oh, get the listing first, then circle prospect and call around it. And it's kind of like that. Have you heard the old adage of like your mom bakes a ham and she cuts the ends of the ham off every time and puts it in a casserole dish, and like every generation it was like, why are we cutting off the ends of the ham? And it's like, I don't know, that's just how my mom did it. And it was because her casserole dish was too small. It had nothing to do with the ham. And I had a moment of like, what? Oh, I was just like unconsciously looking to do it exactly the same way I did before, which again, the way I'm doing it now is definitely not for everybody. And I'm not saying it has to be that way. And if social media is working for you, great. I'm trying to do it all to the best of my ability and working a lot of hours trying to do it all. So, but all that to say, I had this aha moment yesterday when I was like, oh, you can circle prospect now, Jen. Talk to an agent. And like you said, talk to an agent in the office that just sold a listing, get their permission to call around their listing and do it.
Okay. So you're feeling...
Great question, Annalie.
you just got really excited and went on a full tangent.
I'm
feeling to activity.
I'm feeling good because I feel in control.
Yeah.
And I feel like I have clarity on what my plan is. Yeah. And I also know that if that plan isn't working, I'm open to getting a job. I'm open to doing work for real estate agents so that I can not have that pressure. I've got a little more time, but I feel good because I feel like I have a plan. Yeah. And I know know that I'm willing to execute on it. And I know that I'm resilient enough to do it.
Awesome.
How do you feel, Annalie? Nino? Annalie Augusta Nino.
Okay. We don't need to do that. Weirdo.
You feel great, actually?
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, I legitimately, this conversation, and I think like finding community and having conversations
thank
is
you
a huge
for that
part
point
of this too, right? Like talking through things, just sitting and having a coffee with something and saying like, I feel really gross. Let's look at data together. Let's talk about what's worked in the past. Let's brainstorm what new things to try. I think that's a huge part of feeling better. And while we were talking, I was like, okay, what does the rest of my day look like? I have a little bit of admin work to do, and then I'm going to go walk the lake because that always also just makes me feel great. That's my like one thing I try to do every day. I was mentally starting to like pull little things from this conversation and make fill the rest of my day in. Yeah. And how do I'm getting ready to go out of town this weekend. I'm like, how do I make the most of a shorter work week? And like, let's go.
Yeah.
Kind of made me feel like, all right.
Good. Let's do this. Yeah. So on that note, if this is helpful for you, you know what to do. Share it. I mean, it's not really meant to be promo, but I do think this is like how maybe there is somebody that you're like, hey, I'm looking to build a community. Because even though I have a community and I have you as a friend and we're doing all of this, there are still moments when I'm feeling alone in what I'm doing. Yeah. And it does require us reaching out and being like, okay, I don't want to be alone in this. Like, who can I link arms with right now and do that? So I'm really glad because that's a really important point to resilience. Yeah, not being alone. Good job.
Talk about it.
Good job, Annalie.
I remembered because it did make like, legitimately. I like
feel better.
My brain shifted into just like pause, walk, plan, and then execute.
What's a different P word for walk?
Peruse.
Pause.
Plant your feet in front of another.
Plant one foot in front of the other. Pause something. And then it'd be nice if they were all P's and we could like, package it. We'd probably trademark it or something. Pause, take a walk, take a breather, put a plan together. Remind yourself why you're doing what you're doing. Look yourself in the mirror, and if you're old like me, you'll know this quote. You can look yourself in the mirror and say, I'm smart enough. How does it go? The old SNL skit?
Yeah.
I'm
good enough.
Good enough. God on it. People like me. Yeah. People like you. You're good. All right.
We did it.
That's it for this episode of Real Estate Done Rightish. Until next time, cheers to doing it rightish.
We'll try. I'll just do it as fast as it feels. Okay.
The information, opinions, and recommendations presented in this podcast are for general knowledge and informational purposes only and do not constitute professional, legal, or financial advice. As licensed real estate agents in the state of Minnesota, we are not attorneys, financial advisors, or tax professionals, and we cannot provide advice in those areas or in regards to any agency or broker-specific topics in any other state. Any reliance you place on the information provided in this podcast is strictly at your own risk. We strongly encourage you to consult with qualified professionals for specific guidance related to your individual circumstances.
Wow! That was good. All right. Can you look?
I feel like I'm going to the beach today.
You look like it.
Look at me. I'm going to the beach.
That's good.
I'm going to be resilient at the beach.
It's easy to be resilient when you're there, I feel like. You know, you can handle
Shift my
you can
mindset
handle the
at the
sand in your
beach.
toes, no problem.
Yeah. I'm going to Margaritaville. Wonder if anything is ever going to move in that building across the street. That's so much just
so
empty real estate. But do you think it's just like a giant corporation owns it? So they're just doing it, like they're just writing off the debt. It's been vacant for so long. You'd think they just want somebody in there. Don't you ever see a building like that and be like, I could just live in there?